My name is Mama Nunkem. I'm 64 years old. I was sitting in my room that Tuesday afternoon, tying my scarf and rubbing shea butter on my knees, when my phone vibrated on the table beside me. I picked it up and saw a voice note from my daughter-in-law, Amara. I didn't even think much of it. We hardly sent voice notes to each other. Normally it was, "Good morning, Mummy," or "Please, we're coming on Sunday, should we buy bread?" So I pressed play without thinking. What I heard made my whole chest go cold. "Baby, we can't keep your mum here anymore. I've already made the arrangements. The doctor will sign the report next week. She'll be at Cedar Palms before she even realizes what's going on. I've spoken to Cola about the land papers. Once we file the transfer and say it's for the trust, we can use the house as collateral for the studio. This is the cleanest way to do it. She'll be out by Friday, and the house will be ours legally by end of month." I froze. I sat up slowly and stared at the phone like it was lying to me. I pressed play again. Maybe I didn't hear it well. Maybe I was dreaming. But the same voice, the same calm, cold tone. She was talking to my son, Chinedu. She was supposed to send it to him, but somehow she sent it to me. That's how I found out my own daughter-in-law was planning to put me in a home, take over my house, and use it for their business. I didn't even know what trust or collateral meant in that moment. All I heard was her calling me a problem that needed to be removed. I was the one who raised Chinedu after his father died when he was just 10. I was the one who sold Akara every Saturday just to buy him school books. I carried that boy on my back when he had malaria. I paid for his WAEC with money I borrowed from a neighbor. And now, the wife he married was planning to throw me away like an old shoe. I dropped the phone gently on the bed and sat there for a while. My ears were ringing. I didn't even cry. I just sat there like stone. I looked around my small parlor, the curtains I bought from Oshodi Market, the framed graduation photo of Chinedu, the armchair where I used to sit and mark student assignments when I was still teaching. Everything in that room had a story. Everything was paid for with sweat. And now, someone I welcomed into this house with open arms wanted to take all of it from me and dump me somewhere like a stranger. I stood up slowly and walked to the mirror. I looked at myself. My hands were trembling, but my face was calm. I looked myself in the eye and said, "Nkem, get up. You're not stupid. You're not weak. You didn't suffer all your life just to be pushed around like this." I tied my wrapper tighter, picked up my small bag and locked the front door. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I couldn't sit down and do nothing. I walked to the roadside and flagged down a keek. As we moved, I thought about everything. About how I met Amara for the first time. How she smiled so sweetly and called me Mummy and brought me rice and chicken when she was still dating my son. How I thanked God that my son found a respectful wife. I didn't know that behind that sweet smile was somebody who was planning to take everything I had. When they got married, I danced. I really did. I wore my best lace and sprayed money I didn't even have. I told everyone, "My son has found a good woman." And for a while, it felt like that was true. They used to come every Sunday with groceries and gist. They would ask, "Mummy, how is your leg? Are you taking your BP medicine?" Amara would help me clean the kitchen. Chinedu would change the light bulbs. I was happy. I thought I had a family. But after about 2 years, things started changing slowly. Amara opened an event planning business, and it wasn't going well. One day it was, "Mummy, please, can you help us with 30K? We'll pay back next week." Then it became 50K, then 100K. Then one day she said, "Mummy, this your parlour is too old-fashioned. Let me help you redecorate." I agreed. I thought it was kindness. before I knew it, she had moved my favourite chair into the backyard and brought in new things I didn't even ask for. Then one day she told me, "Mummy, since we come every weekend now, it doesn't make sense for us to sleep in the guest room. Let's just take the master bedroom, and you can use the small one." I agreed again. I didn't want to make trouble. I told myself, they are young, let them be comfortable. But it didn't stop there. She started telling people that I was forgetful, that I left the stove on, that I misplaced money, that I was getting confused. One time I misplaced my house key, and she said in front of guests, "Mummy is losing touch, small, small O." Everyone laughed, but it wasn't funny to me. I started noticing the way she looked at me, like I was in the way, like I was a problem they were just managing. And then that voice note. That voice note confirmed what my spirit had been trying to tell me for months. They wanted me out of my own house. The same house I built with my pension and teaching jobs. The same house where I raised Chinedu. The house where I sat with my mother before she passed and promised her I would take care of this family. That house meant everything to me. And now they were plotting to take it like it was just a building. No respect. No shame. As the Kiki moved through the streets, I didn't feel angry. I felt sharp, like something inside me had woken up. I told myself, they think I'm old and slow, but they've forgotten I was once a headmistress. I know how to catch thieves with smile. I know how to gather evidence. I know how to plan. That's when I decided I wasn't going to fight with shouting or tears. I was going to use my brain. I was going to use the law. And I was going to take everything back. Quietly. That evening, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Barrister Uzo. He was the father of one of my best students back in the day. I helped his daughter avoid expulsion once. He owed me a favour. I told him everything. He listened quietly. When I finished, he said, "Madam Nkem, first of all, don't panic. Second of all, that voice note is your biggest weapon. Send it to me now. And tomorrow, meet me at my office. We'll begin." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark and watched the ceiling fan go round and round. I thought about all the things I had done for Chinedu, the hospital visits, the school fees, the tears, the times I went hungry just so he could eat meat in his soup. I wasn't expecting him to give me the world. I just wanted respect. I wanted peace. I wanted to live out my last years quietly in the house I suffered to build. Instead, I was now planning how to stop my own son and his wife from stealing it from me. In the morning, I dressed well. I wore the red wrapper my sister gave me on my 60th birthday. I sprayed a little perfume. I packed all my documents, house receipt, ID card, medical card, and went straight to the lawyer's office. From that moment on, everything began to change, and that was just the beginning. I walked into Barrister Uzo's office like a woman on a mission. The moment he saw me, he stood up and smiled. "Mama Nkem," he said, "you still carry yourself like a queen." I smiled back, but my heart was heavy. I sat down, pulled out my nylon file and placed it on the table. "Barrister, I don't want trouble. I just want to protect what I've worked for. That house is my blood and bones." He nodded and brought out his notepad. "Let's start with the basics. You said the house is in your name?" "Yes," I replied. "I bought the land in 1993. I built it small over the years. First it was just 2 rooms and zinc roof. Then I added a parlour, then a kitchen. I finally tiled it in 2010. Every block there I paid for with sweat. It's my name that's on the original receipt and the land documents." He looked at me seriously. "Good. We can work with that. We're going to place a caveat on that property immediately. That means nobody can sell, transfer, or tamper with the land title without your written consent, not even if they try to forge your signature. He brought out a form, printed a document, and asked me to sign. This is to protect you from the inside, he said. They might already be trying to tamper with it. As I was signing, I paused. Barrister? I said. They also said something about using a doctor to say I'm mentally unstable, so that they can get guardianship. He raised his eyebrow. That's a dangerous game, but we can destroy it if we act fast. I'll arrange for you to do a full cognitive test with a certified doctor today. It will serve as proof that you're perfectly fine. Once that's in place, no court will believe any false report they try to bring. He picked up his phone, made a call, and before I knew it, he had booked an appointment for me at a private clinic with a geriatric specialist named Dr. Yemi. I left his office straight to the hospital. The place was clean, quiet, and professional. Dr. Yemi was a young woman, but very sharp. She gave me a warm smile. Madam Nkem, don't worry. We're just going to do a few tests to see how your memory and awareness are. She gave me small tasks. She told me to draw a clock. She asked me to remember 3 words: orange, table, elephant. She asked what year it was, who the president was. She gave me a paper with numbers and told me to subtract 7 from each number. I passed everything with flying colours. She looked at me and smiled. Mama, you are sharper than many people I know. You don't have any sign of dementia. I'll write a full report stating clearly that you're of sound mind and can make your own decisions. When I left that hospital, I felt lighter, like I was beginning to take back control of my life. I had the house documents, the legal protection, and now medical proof that I wasn't going mad like they were trying to make people believe. I got home and sat in my chair. It was quiet, but my head was spinning. I started thinking back to how this all began, how I raised Chinedu, how I gave everything for him. I remembered the day he passed common entrance exam, and I didn't have the money to buy him a pair of shoes. I went to school that day barefoot, just to save money. I remember him crying and hugging me. He said, "Mummy, one day I'll make you so proud." And he did. He got into Unilag, studied electrical engineering, got a job after NYSC, met Amara. And I was happy. I thought it was the beginning of joy. But I didn't know it was the beginning of pain. Amara was sweet at first, that kind of sweetness that you think is real, the kind that comes with stew in takeaway containers and loud, "Mummy, good evening," greetings. But over time, it became clear that the sweetness was just packaging. Beneath it, there was something else, something sharp, something dangerous. The first time I really saw it was the day I lost N20,000 in the house. I was sure I kept it in the cupboard in the parlour, wrapped in old newspaper. I needed it to buy my BP medicine. I searched everywhere. I turned the house upside down. When I finally asked Amara if she saw it, she smiled and said, "Mummy, are you sure you didn't forget where you kept it? You've been misplacing things a lot lately." It stung, the way she said it, the look on her face. I wanted to argue, but I didn't want to cause trouble. Then came the changes in the house. The kitchen was rearranged. My old pots disappeared. She brought in new plates, fancy wine glasses, even changed the sitting room curtains without asking me. She called it modernizing. She started calling the shots, and my son just kept quiet. He would smile awkwardly and say, "Mum, let's just let her be. She means well." But I knew. Deep inside me, I knew something was changing. Then they moved into my house completely. said they were renovating their rented apartment. Just for a month, they said. That was 10 months ago. Every week I watched my own house slowly become theirs. They changed the locks. They controlled the remote. They kept mail keys. They even started using my generator without refueling it. My house, the one I built block by block, started feeling like a hotel where I was a guest. And now I understood why. They were preparing to take it. That night, I got a call from Auntie Rose, my neighbour. She said, "Mama Nkem, I don't want to gossip, but I overheard something strange the other day when Amara was on the phone outside. She was talking about making space for the new plan and how Mummy doesn't need to know everything. I just thought you should know." I thanked her. That confirmed it. Now I knew I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't overthinking. They were planning something serious. The next day, I returned to Barrister Uzo's office. He had already filed the caveat on my property. Nobody could tamper with it now without my consent. He also called someone from the land registry and found out something shocking. A new document had already been submitted 2 weeks ago trying to declare the house as joint family property under a living trust. The names on it? Chinedu and Amara. I was shocked. Uzo said, "Don't worry, that document is void now. The caveat cancels any pending changes, but we'll still collect all copies and keep them. We're going to build your case carefully." He smiled and said something that gave me strength. "They thought you were weak, Mama Nkem, but you're the strongest client I've had this year." I went home with a plan, but I kept quiet. I acted normal. When Amara said, "Mummy, do you want some jollof rice?" I smiled and said, "Yes, oh, bring it with plantain." When she asked, "Mummy, can you stop locking the front gate? It's stressful when we forget our key," I said, "No problem, my daughter." When they said they were taking me for a routine checkup next Friday, I smiled and said, "Thank you, my children. God bless you." But inside me, I was preparing. I was gathering. I was learning. I took my medical report and made 3 photocopies. I made extra copies of the voice note transcript. I wrote a list of everything in the house I bought with my money. I even collected the receipts I used to buy cement from 1996 and kept them in a waterproof bag. Every single proof that this house was mine. One evening, I found a brown envelope on the dining table. It was slightly open. I looked inside and saw papers with the heading Power of Attorney. I saw my name printed there, but not in my handwriting. It was forged. I snapped photos of it quietly. I didn't say a word. Later that night, I heard Amara whispering on the phone in the kitchen. "Babe, once we get the doctor to sign and the document goes through, the house is locked in. She won't even know. She'll just think it's a medical appointment. Once she's at Cedar Palms, the lawyer will file for guardianship. Simple." She laughed. I didn't even feel pain again. I just felt sharp. The kind of sharpness a woman carries when she knows the battle has already started. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Friday will be their surprise, but it will be my victory." And I meant it. Friday came quickly. The same Friday, they planned to take me for a checkup that would end at some nursing home called Cedar Palms. The morning sun hadn't even fully settled when I heard Amara's voice outside my window. "Chinedu, tell her to dress nicely, something soft and presentable. We don't want her looking like a madwoman when we arrive there." I didn't move. I sat on my bed, staring at the wrapper I had already laid out for myself. It was a soft blue Ankara with small white dots. Clean, ironed, and ready. I wasn't wearing it for the doctors. I was wearing it because today was war. When I finally came out, Amara smiled like everything was normal. "Mummy, good morning. Hope you slept well. Your checkup is 10 a.m., so we'll leave in 20 minutes. I smiled gently. No wahala, my daughter. Inside my bag was everything I needed: copies of the house documents, the medical report from Dr. Yemi confirming I was perfectly fine, the printed transcript of her voice note, and even the power of attorney she tried to forge. But what she didn't know was that I had also called Barrister Uzo the night before. He would be waiting with 2 officers, a land registry official, and a camera. And not just that. He had also arranged for Dr. Yemi herself to be present. As we got into the car, Amara was humming a gospel song. Everything I double. It made my stomach turn. Not because she was singing it, but because she believed in her mind that everything was already settled. In her mind, I was already gone. My room was already hers. The studio they wanted to build was already halfway designed. She was just waiting for the right time to bring in the interior decorator. Chinedu drove quietly. He didn't say a word. His hands gripped the steering tightly. I didn't know what was going on in his heart, whether he was in on it fully or just closing his eyes and pretending not to see. But I decided I would give him one last chance today, to choose me, his mother. We arrived at the hospital. Not Cedar Palms yet. They said this was the clinic that would run the assessment. I stepped down and looked around. Private hospital. Big gates. Clean reception. I sat down in the waiting area. After 10 minutes, a young man in a grey suit came out with a clipboard. "Madam Nkem?" he called. "Yes," I said, standing up. "This way, please." Just as I took one step forward, I heard another voice. "Excuse me, are you conducting a mental health evaluation for Madam Nkem?" We all turned. It was Dr. Yemi, standing by the door, wearing a white coat, holding a folder. The man stammered. "Yes. We were told—" "You can stop right there," she said. "This woman was examined in my hospital 3 days ago. She has a clean bill of mental health, full cognitive function, no signs of memory loss or confusion. She is as sharp as any adult her age can possibly be." The man turned to Amara. "Ma, this contradicts what you told us." Amara's face changed. "What do you mean, contradict? We were just doing a second opinion, that's all." Just then, Barrister Uzo walked in, followed by 2 uniformed officers and a man in plain clothes holding a badge. He was from the land registry. "Good morning, everyone," Uzo said calmly. "We're here on behalf of Madam Nkem regarding reports of fraud, forged documents, and an attempted illegal transfer of her property." Amara's mouth opened slightly. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Chinedu stood there frozen, looking from me to the lawyer, then back to Amara. One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we'd like to speak with you privately." They led Amara into a side room. I turned to Chinedu. "My son?" I said softly. "Did you know about all this?" He didn't answer. He just looked down. "I'm going to ask you only once," I said. "And after that, I will decide how I deal with you." He looked me in the eye for the first time. "Mummy, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Amara just said she was helping organize our documents. She told me it was for business. She said you would be safer in a retirement home, that we were protecting you. I didn't know she already went to file land papers or sign any medical forms." I watched his face. He looked scared. Not of me, but of the reality that his wife might have gone too far. And maybe deep down, he knew. He let her. "You didn't know, or you didn't want to know?" I asked. He kept quiet. The officer came out with Amara. She looked pale now. Her makeup was smudged. Her blouse had sweat patches. All the confidence was gone. "Ma," one of the officers said to me, "based on your testimony and the evidence from your lawyer, we will begin an investigation into attempted property fraud. But if you'd prefer to settle this civilly, we can allow a formal confession and withdrawal of all forged documents first." I nodded. "I want everything she tried to take from me cancelled. I want it written and signed. I also want the copies she has in her possession handed over." Amara stood there, not saying anything. "If you don't cooperate," the officer added, "we can escalate this and press full criminal charges. That includes the forgery of mental health reports and identity fraud." She looked at me. Her lips were shaking. "Mummy, please, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to protect our future." I laughed quietly. "You mean your future? Because if you were trying to protect my future, you wouldn't be hiding papers. You wouldn't be spreading rumors that I'm senile. You wouldn't be planning to drag me to one nursing home like I'm a piece of luggage." She started crying, but it didn't move me. I had cried too, in silence, on my bed, when nobody was watching. The officer handed her a pen and a statement document. "You can write your confession here. Clearly state what you did, and that you're withdrawing any claim to her house." She wrote it, slowly, carefully. When she was done, she handed it over. Barrister Uzo collected it, read it, and nodded. "I'll file this with the registrar today," he said. "The land registry will flag her name on any future submission concerning your property." As we walked outside, I turned to Chinedu. "You're going to stay with me or follow your wife?" He looked lost. "Mum, I need to think." "No problem," I said. "But while you're thinking, please carry your things. Both of you. I want you out of my house by tomorrow morning." His eyes widened. "Mum? I gave birth to you. I carried you in my stomach. I cleaned your wounds. But I won't carry betrayal in my house. If you didn't know what was going on, you should have. You're my son, not my enemy's lawyer." He nodded slowly. That night, the house was quiet. No voices, no footsteps, no fake smiles, just me and the sound of the ceiling fan. And for the first time in months, I slept well. But it wasn't over yet. The next morning, as I was sweeping the compound, I saw a small envelope slide under the gate. Inside was a folded piece of paper with no name, no sender. It said, "You may have won today, but you've made powerful enemies. Watch your back, old woman." I read it twice. Then I folded it calmly, walked to the backyard, lit a match, and burnt it over a bucket. I was not afraid, because I had already faced the worst thing a mother can face, betrayal from her own child, and I survived it. I was now ready for anything. The day after I burnt that threatening note, I stood in the backyard, watching the fire die out, and I made a vow. I was not going to let fear control me. I had lived through war. I had survived widowhood at 35. I had raised a child with nothing but my salary as a schoolteacher and the help of God. I had carried pain on my back and still stood straight. No child, no daughter-in-law, no betrayal was going to make me bend now. But deep inside me, I also knew this fight wasn't over. The documents had been withdrawn. The lies had been exposed. But people like Amara, they never accept defeat quietly. I had seen it in her eyes at the hospital, that fake regret, those tears that dried too fast. Something told me she was not done with me yet. By evening, they had packed their bags. Chinedu didn't even say goodbye. I sat by the window and watched them carry their boxes out, one by one, without speaking. Amara didn't look up once, and when they drove off, the silence in the compound felt like fresh air. I locked the gate, not just with the key, but with my heart. For the next few days, I rested. I cooked small soups. I cleaned my cupboard. I even played my old radio and danced a little. I was trying to feel like myself again, but the quiet didn't last. It started with a neighbour. "Mama Nankem," Auntie Rose said as she leaned over the fence. "Have you seen what they posted on Facebook?" "What is it again?" I asked. She passed me her phone. There it was. A post from a fake account using one of Amara's old pictures, but the name was changed. It said, "My mother-in-law is sick. She suffers from memory loss. We tried to get her help, but she chased us away. Please pray for our family." Under the post were photos. One of me yawning on the veranda, another of my Bible and my slippers beside the door, taken without my knowledge. The captions read, "She doesn't remember who we are anymore. We just want to help her." I felt the fire in my chest again. My hands started shaking. This woman was trying to destroy my name. I took screenshots immediately and sent them to Barrister Uzo. He didn't waste time. "We're filing a cease and desist letter. She's trying to build a fake record again. Maybe for another guardianship attempt. Maybe just to shame you. But we'll respond. Don't worry." Later that night, I got a call from a number I didn't know. When I picked, the voice said, "So you think you've won? You think you're smart? Watch what happens next. Old women like you should die quietly." Then they hung up. I stood there for a moment. Then I walked to my drawer and pulled out the small Nokia phone I used to keep emergency numbers. I called Uzo again. "Barrister," I said, "they're trying to break me." His voice was calm. "Let them try. We're already tracking the fake profiles. We'll get the IP address. If the calls continue, I'll arrange for a police report." The next day, I received visitors. Not family, not friends, but strangers. First, it was a woman who claimed to be a community health worker. She said she received a concerned report that I was an elderly woman living alone and might need medication review. I told her politely, "My doctor knows me well. Thank you." And I locked the gate. Then, 2 days later, another knock. This time a young man with a badge that said, "Elder Care Nigeria." He said, "We're doing assessments for state-funded care." I said, "I didn't apply." He smiled and said, "Someone applied on your behalf. Your daughter, I think." That's when I knew what Amara was doing. She was trying to build a paper trail to make it look like I was unwell. If she couldn't take my house with fake signatures, she would try to take my reputation with fake concern. I told the young man firmly, "I do not give consent. Please leave." And I called Uzo again. "Barrister," I said, "I need this to stop." He replied, "Then it's time we move to the next phase." I met him at his office the next day. He had already gathered everything. Screenshots of the fake posts, recordings of the phone threats, signed confessions, witness statements, even the clinic's camera footage of the confrontation. He was building a wall of evidence. He said, "There are 2 options. We go to court and file a criminal case, or we make her pay in another way." "What way?" I asked. He smiled. "Economic, legal, social." I didn't understand at first, but by the time I left his office, I had a new fire in me. That evening, I changed all my account passwords. I moved my pension into a separate account. I updated the name of the beneficiary on my small life insurance to a senior charity home in Lagos. I even changed my will. Everything I owned, the land, the house, the savings. I rewrote it all. And this time, I added one clear sentence. If any beneficiary challenges this will, they are automatically disqualified from receiving anything. I didn't want Chinedu or Amara to smell a kobo if they ever tried again. And then, just when I thought it couldn't go any lower, I got a letter in my gate. It was anonymous, but I knew who sent it. The words were poison. You call yourself a good mother? No wonder your husband died early. You raise a son only to chase him and his wife out like dogs. When you die, nobody will cry for you. I read the letter twice. I sat down. My chest was heavy. I felt like I was drowning. I didn't cry, but I felt something break inside. All those years, all that love, all those nights I stayed awake praying for my son. The prayers, the sacrifices, the silence. And this was what I got. I sat in my kitchen and whispered, was I really a bad mother? Then I remembered my mother's old letter, the one she wrote to me before she died. I opened the small envelope where I had kept it all these years. The paper was old, but the words were strong. Nkem, if the world ever turns against you, remember your value is not in their mouths. It's in your heart. You were born strong. You were born wise. If people don't see it, let them go. Don't shrink. Rise. I held that letter and I stood up. The next morning I went back to Barrister Uzo. Barrister, I said, file everything. The slander, the harassment, the forgery. I want it all in public records. I want the world to know what they did to me. He looked at me, smiled and said, now you sound like the headmistress I remember. We filed the full report at the magistrate court. That same week, I went to the market and bought paint. I repainted the gate of my house myself, bright green. I hung a small sign on it. Peace lives here. Then I went to the church and gave a testimony. Not because I had won, but because I had survived. Amara and Chinedu thought they were taking down an old woman. But what they didn't know was that the old woman had been through storms they couldn't imagine. And every time she came out stronger. They tried to take my house. They failed. They tried to shame me. I stood tall. They tried to isolate me. I found new friends. They tried to break my heart. But my heart was built by God, and it was not theirs to break. After I repainted the gate and hung that small sign that said, Peace lives here, something inside me shifted. It felt like I had pushed out all the darkness and replaced it with air. The house felt light again. The walls weren't watching me anymore. I could hear my own thoughts clearly. For the first time in months, I boiled yam without fear that someone would complain it was too soft or that the gas was smelling. I sat down in my old armchair with my hot cup of Lipton and just breathed. But peace, no matter how you fight for it, always comes with noise on the other side. And that noise came the next Sunday. I was inside, folding my wrapper, when I heard someone knock the gate. Not gently, not respectfully, but loud and fast. I didn't rush. I opened slowly. And there he was, my son, Chinedu, standing there like a child who didn't know if he should come in or turn around and run. He wasn't holding flowers. He wasn't smiling. He was just standing there, holding a small black nylon bag and looking like the same boy I raised, the one that used to follow me to buy Gary from Mama Ugo's shop when he was 10. But that boy had changed, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. Mum, he said, can I come in? I opened the gate and stepped aside. If you're here to talk with respect, come in. If you're here to defend evil, turn back. He didn't say anything. He walked in, sat on the plastic chair beside the window. I sat opposite him and waited. He looked around the room like it was the first time he was seeing it in years. I could see his eyes land on the framed photo of his graduation. Then, on the old Bible, I always kept on the centre table. "Mum," he said again. "I came to say sorry." I stayed silent. I didn't know it would go this far. I didn't know she was trying to take the house. I knew she was controlling sometimes. But I thought she meant well. I thought maybe you were just getting old and stubborn. I looked at him. "So when I misplaced N20,000 and told you someone had taken it, and she said I was confused, what did you think?" He looked down. I didn't want to believe she would lie. "And when she told you to sign papers and said it was just family trust, you didn't ask questions?" He shook his head slowly. "She always said it was for our future, that if we waited too long, your health might get worse, that it was better to prepare early." I laughed a bitter laugh. "Prepare for what? My burial? Is that what you two were planning while I was cooking for you? While I was blessing your marriage in my prayers? I was preparing soup, and she was preparing documents. You ate my food and signed away my dignity." He stood up. "Mum, please. I'm sorry." I raised my hand. "Sorry doesn't change anything, Chinedu. You let someone turn you against your own mother. You chose comfort over conscience. You saw her talk to me like I was furniture, and you kept quiet. You let her remove my name from decisions in my own house. You were there when they almost tricked me into a nursing home. And now you're here. What? To fix it with a bag of apologies?" He dropped the nylon on the table. "I brought groceries. I thought maybe you hadn't gone to the market." I pushed it aside. "I don't need food from someone who watched them starve my peace." He sat back down, quiet, like someone who was finally hearing his own shame. "Mum, she's left me," he said. I looked up. "What?" "She packed out, after the whole thing blew up, said I embarrassed her, said I should have defended her. We argued. She slapped me. Then she left." I didn't respond. "She said she only married me because she thought I would be useful." Still, I didn't speak. He looked at me like he was waiting for me to say, "Sorry," but I had no more sorry in my mouth. My tears had dried. My kindness was now fenced. "So now what do you want?" I finally asked. He shrugged. "I don't know." "Then go and find out," I said. He stood up. "Can I at least visit you again?" I shook my head. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. Go and find yourself. When you remember who your mother is, when you start to think clearly, then maybe this gate will open for you again." He nodded. "Okay, Mum, I'll go." And he left. That evening, I sat in the parlour, thinking. Not about Chinedu, but about me. About how I allowed myself to get so small. How I shrank to keep peace. How I stayed quiet because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law. How I thought love meant tolerating disrespect. It took betrayal to show me that I had the right to set boundaries. It took a voice message meant for someone else to wake me up from a long sleep. The next day, I went to the bank. I changed my signature to a new one, sharper, cleaner, stronger. I opened a fresh savings account that only I could touch. I told the bank manager to flag any request linked to my BVN from Amara or Chinedu. I even asked them to send me an alert if anyone ever tried to check my account balance again. He nodded and said, "Don't worry, Ma. It's locked tight now." After the bank, I went to a small charity home I used to visit long ago, a place that took care of abandoned elderly women. I walked into the compound and sat with some of the women under the mango tree. I listened to their stories. One woman, Mama Raleigh, told me how her 3 sons disappeared the day her land got sold. Another one said her daughter took her ATM card to help with errands and never returned. I sat there, nodding slowly. I wasn't alone, and something inside me said, "Your pain must not go to waste." That same week, I met with Barrister Uzo again. "I want to change my will," I told him. He smiled. "Again?" "Yes," I said. "But this time I want it airtight. I want my house, my savings, everything to go to that charity home. And I want it clearly written that if Chinedu or Amara try to challenge it, they get nothing. Not even one seat from my parlour." He wrote it exactly as I said. I signed it with my new signature. And I walked out feeling brand new. But just as I was beginning to feel like I could finally rest, a new letter came. This one was from a microfinance bank. Apparently, someone had tried to use my house as collateral for a business loan. The application was declined because of the caveat Uzo had filed, but the bank still sent the notice out of courtesy. I called Uzo again. He followed up immediately. And guess who it was? Kola, Amara's cousin, the same one who helped with those early forged documents. But now the bank had his name, his ID, and his signature. Uzo said, "This is good. If we want, we can use this to build a criminal fraud case." I paused. I was tired. Tired of court. Tired of paperwork. Tired of watching the people I once welcomed into my life try again and again to bite the hand that fed them. So I said, "Barrister, do it. Let the law teach them what I was too kind to say." We filed it. And just like that, Kola lost his job, got fined, and was blacklisted from applying for any loans for the next 5 years. One by one, the doors they thought they were opening began to close. But I didn't celebrate. I didn't shout. I just sat on my veranda every evening, drinking tea, watching the sky change colours. Until one afternoon, the postman came. Another envelope. This one had no threat, no fake concern. Just one piece of paper. From Amara. It read, "Mummy, I know you'll never forgive me. And maybe I don't deserve it. But I need to say it. I was wrong. I was desperate. I was stupid. I didn't know how to build. I only knew how to take. You treated me with love, and I paid you back with shame. I lost my marriage. I lost your trust. I don't want anything from you anymore. I just want you to know I'm sorry." I folded the letter. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just whispered to myself, "But you lost yourself too, Amara. And that's the worst kind of loss." I placed the letter in my Bible and closed it. Then I stood up, dusted my wrapper, and went to wash rice. Because life, no matter how hard it shakes you, must continue. And peace, once you find it, must be protected, not with noise, but with wisdom, with fences, with locks, with lessons, and with love that doesn't blind you anymore. After I placed Amara's letter inside my Bible, I told myself something that I would never forget again. Forgiveness doesn't mean foolishness. She had said she was sorry. She said she didn't want anything from me anymore. But sorry doesn't erase what someone tried to do. Sorry doesn't mean you should allow them to try again. That's the mistake people like me make. We think love is enough. We think suffering is normal. But I had learnt. I had seen with my own eyes how dangerous silence could be. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not even Chinedu, pull me back into the dark. Peace had become too expensive for me to trade again. The days that followed were peaceful. My body finally rested. I stopped waking up with a tight chest. My BP, that had been rising slowly for months, went back down. I started sleeping well again. I even began going for evening walks around the street, greeting neighbours and buying roasted plantain from that boy that always stood beside the kiosk with one side of his trouser always torn. Life felt like mine again. But like I said, peace doesn't stay unless you protect it. One morning, around 7 a.m., just as I was about to take my tea, I heard a knock on the gate. A gentle knock, not loud, not aggressive. I looked through the window. It was Chinedu again. But this time, he didn't come with a nylon bag or a long face. He came with a woman beside him. She looked older, maybe late 40s. She was holding a small notebook and a pen. I opened the gate slowly. "Good morning, Mummy," he said. I looked at him. "Good morning. Who is this?" He looked nervous. "She's from the church counselling team. I've been attending sessions. I brought her so you can hear from me properly. I owe you the full truth." I looked at the woman. She smiled softly and said, "Good morning, Ma. My name is Sister Felicia. I've been working with your son for the past 4 weeks. He asked if I could sit with both of you for one conversation. Just one. No shouting. Just clarity. If you say no, we'll leave." I stared at both of them. Then I opened the gate. We sat in my parlour. The same parlour that had once felt like a prison when Amara was rearranging everything and calling it modern. Chinedu cleared his throat and said, "Mum, I want to tell you something I've never said before." I looked at him quietly. He continued, "I was scared of Amara, not because she shouted or beat me, but because she made me feel small. She made me believe that anything I did on my own was never good enough. She used to compare me to her friends' husbands, told me I was too soft, that I let you control me, that I wasn't a man." He looked down. I started changing, not because I hated you, but because I was trying to prove to her that I wasn't your little boy anymore, that I could stand like a man, and the only way I knew how to do that was to step on you. I felt a pain in my chest, but I didn't interrupt. He swallowed and said, "When she suggested putting the house in a trust, I didn't even read the papers. I just signed. She told me it would protect us in case anything happened. When she said we should get a doctor to assess you, I didn't know she already had a fake one waiting. When I found out she had gone behind to forge your signature and file things, I didn't stop her. I just said, 'Okay.' I said 'okay' too many times." He was shaking now. The woman beside him placed her hand on his. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, "but I want you to know I see what I did. I see how I became a coward, and I see that I let a woman come between me and the only person who ever truly loved me." I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I said, "Chinedu, you were my life. When your father died, I could have remarried. I had chances. But I said, no. Let me focus on this child. I carried you through malaria, through school fees, through nights of crying. I fed you when I had no food for myself. I stayed up and read your assignments when you couldn't. And I did all of it because I believed that one day you would become a man who would stand for truth, who would protect his mother. Not one who would sit down and allow his wife to make plans to destroy me." I took a deep breath. "I'm not angry because you were weak. I'm angry because you watched someone try to bury me alive. And you said nothing." He cried. Not soft tears, deep ones. The counsellor stood up. "I'll give you both space," she said. When she left, I got up and brought him water. He wiped his face. Then I said, "I'm not ready to forgive you yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I can tell you this. If you are truly sorry, go and live a life that proves it. Not for me, for yourself." He nodded. "Thank you, Mum." He left, and I locked the gate again. That evening I got a call. It was from the charity home I had named in my will. The woman said, "Mama Inkem, we saw your name in the updated records. We are shocked. We want to say thank you. But we also want to ask, would you like to come and teach the women here every Friday? Maybe just small lessons, reading, storytelling, something to lift their hearts. I said yes. That Friday I dressed up and went. And when I walked into that home and saw the faces of women that had been thrown away by their own families, I realized something. My story wasn't just mine. It belonged to thousands of other mothers, women who loved too much, gave too much, tolerated too much, until there was nothing left of them. I began teaching. Every Friday, I taught them letters, songs, Bible verses. I taught them how to write their names again. I taught them that no matter what their children had done, they were still valuable, still loved, still queens. One Friday after class, I asked one woman, "Mama Bisi, if your daughter comes back, will you forgive her?" She smiled and said, "Maybe. But even if I do, I won't let her move back into my life. I've learnt that forgiveness doesn't mean entrance." That night, I wrote those words in my journal. Forgiveness doesn't mean entrance. The next Sunday, I wore a soft yellow lace and went to church. I sat in the middle row. During testimony time, a woman went up and said, "My mother-in-law is like a witch. She refuses to leave our house, always acting like the queen. She's driving me crazy." Some people laughed. I didn't. After church, I went to the pastor privately. I told him my story. He listened quietly. Then he said, "Mama, come next Sunday. Tell the whole church. They need to hear this side." The next Sunday, I stood before the congregation. I told them how I built my house, how I raised my son, how my daughter-in-law sent a voice note by mistake, how they tried to take my house, how they forged my signature, how they planned to dump me in a nursing home, how I fought, and how I found peace. The church was silent. After the service, women surrounded me. One said, "Mama, you have saved my life." Another said, "I thought I was the only one." A young man came and said, "Please, Ma, can I bring my mother to come and talk to you?" I nodded. I became something I didn't expect. A voice. A voice for women who kept quiet for too long. A voice for mothers who suffered in silence. A voice for dignity. A voice for wisdom. And most of all, a voice for myself. After I gave that testimony in church and shared my story, I didn't expect what came next. People started coming to my house. Some knocked softly and just said, "Mama, I heard what happened. Can I sit with you for a while?" Others sent their own mothers to visit me. Some brought fruits, cloth, small envelopes, just to say thank you for opening their eyes. Even the younger ones, girls in their 20s, began asking me to mentor them. I didn't do it for attention. I did it to heal. But somehow, God used my pain to open doors for others. Every Friday, I still taught at the senior home. And every Saturday, I started a small gathering of women on my compound. We sat on benches, shared food, and just talked. Talked about the way we were treated, the things we gave up, the things we ignored, and what we learned too late. Some cried, some shouted, some just sat quietly. But all of us were healing together. I called it Voice of Mothers. That name came from deep inside me, because for too long, we mothers lose our voices. We carry the world, but are not allowed to cry out when our backs begin to break. But just when I thought my life had finally reached a place of peace, another letter arrived. This time, it wasn't from Amara. It wasn't from Chinedu. It was from a lawyer, a different one, a sharp, expensive one based in Ikoyi. The envelope was thick. I opened it slowly and read the first page. It said, This is to inform Madame Nkem that Miss Amara Okoye has filed a claim seeking access to financial compensation for emotional damages, reputational injury, and marital loss caused by the public disclosure of private events which have negatively impacted her career and personal well-being. I almost laughed. So after everything she did, after trying to take my house, trying to fake my mental report, lying about me online, she now wanted to sue me because I told the truth in church. I called Barrister Uzo immediately. He picked and said, "Mama, I've seen it. She's trying to flip the script now, claiming defamation." I asked, "So what do we do?" He said, "We fight back, but not with noise, with evidence." I went into my cupboard and brought out everything. The original voice note, the confession letter she signed at the clinic, the screenshots of her fake posts, the audio of her call to the fake doctor, the receipts of her cousin trying to use my land as collateral, the letter she sent saying she was sorry and that she deserved nothing. I even added my medical report from Dr. Yemi. All of it. Uzo smiled. She picked the wrong woman to try again. We filed a counter lawsuit, not just to defend, but to expose everything publicly. This time I wasn't fighting to protect myself. I was fighting so that any other woman in the future who faces what I faced can have a clear road to walk, a warning to the wicked, and a lesson to the naive. The news spread. The case became public. A local journalist picked it up after hearing the church testimony. And once it hit the newspapers, mother sues daughter-in-law over property fraud and emotional manipulation, things turned fast. The same people who used to praise Amara for being classy started whispering. Her event company lost 2 big clients. One of them said, "We can't be associated with someone who tricks her own mother-in-law." That same week, I got a message from a woman I had never met before. Her name was Tochi. She was Amara's former business partner. She said, "Mama Nkem, I left that business 2 years ago because of what Amara did to me. I've been silent. But now, I want to help you." She sent in a sworn statement that Amara had once tricked her into signing over her shares, only to remove her from the business later and pretend she had left by choice. Uzo added it to our file. The pressure built. Amara's expensive lawyer sent an email offering to settle privately. Uzo asked me, "Do you want peace quietly or justice loudly?" I said, "Let the whole world hear it." A court date was set. I stood in court wearing my finest wine-coloured lace, the same one I wore when I retired. I walked in with my head high. Amara sat opposite me, dressed in black, trying to look innocent. Chinedu didn't come. I didn't expect him to. The judge was a woman. I felt safe. Uzo presented everything. The voice note, the forged papers, the fake online posts, the threats, the emotional distress, the lie that nearly put me in a home, the truth that saved me. Amara's lawyer tried to argue that I had exaggerated, that old women sometimes forget things, that I was just scared of change. But when the judge listened to the full audio message, the one Amara sent by mistake, she looked up and said, "You called her a nuisance. You said she would be locked up before she realized what's happening. You laughed about stealing her house. And now you're asking for compensation?" Amara stayed quiet. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. She awarded damages to me. She ordered Amara to issue a public apology in writing and post it in 3 newspapers and on all her social media accounts. She barred Amara from making any public statement about me or the case ever again. And she reminded the court, elder abuse is real, and this is a perfect example. I left the court that day with my dignity not just protected, but restored. Women hugged me at the gate. One woman said, "I watched the whole thing. You're a lion." But I didn't feel like a lion. I felt like a tired old woman who just wanted her peace and had to fight like a soldier to earn it. When I got home, I sat in my chair and finally cried. Not because I was sad, but because it was finally over. The next day, Amara's apology was printed in the newspaper. Her Instagram post read, "I, Amara Okoye, wish to publicly apologize to Madam Nkem for the lies, manipulation, and emotional harm I caused. I accept full responsibility for my actions and withdraw all claims I made against her." I didn't respond. I didn't even tell anyone. I just clipped the newspaper and tucked it beside my mother's old letter. Then I stood up, turned on my radio, and boiled water for tea. Because the storm was over, and it was time for sunshine. After that court case ended, and Amara posted the apology, I thought that was the last I would hear from her. I thought everything had finally ended. But life always finds a way to test your heart again, even when you think you've passed the exam. About 3 weeks after the judgment, I was coming back from the market with some small yams and vegetables. I entered my compound, opened my front door, and stopped. Amara was sitting on my couch. Alone. No makeup. No fancy clothes. Just a plain wrapper and blouse. Her eyes were swollen, like someone who had been crying for days. I stood at the door. I didn't drop my bag. I didn't even sit down. I said, "Who let you in?" She turned slowly and said, "The gate was open." I sighed. "You shouldn't be here." She looked down. "I know." There was a long silence. Then she whispered, "I lost everything." I didn't speak. She continued, "My clients all pulled out. Investors left. My accounts were flagged. Even my apartment, the one we used to live in, I've been evicted. I'm staying with a friend." But her husband already started complaining. "I know you hate me, Mama. I just needed to say, I'm sorry, not for the court, not because I lost, but because I now understand the kind of woman you are." I shook my head slowly. "You don't understand anything. You don't come into someone's life, tear everything down, then come back when the house is in ashes and say sorry. You didn't just hurt me. You taught a whole generation watching online that disrespecting your elders is normal. That manipulation is power. That family is disposable." She stood up and came closer. "I know. And I'm not asking to be forgiven. I just needed to say it face to face. I wanted to know, is Chinedu okay?" I paused. I hadn't heard from Chinedu in 2 months. Ever since the court case started, he vanished. He didn't call, didn't write. I figured he was ashamed, or maybe tired of picking sides. "I don't know," I said. "He hasn't spoken to me since the case ended." She looked shocked. "He hasn't spoken to me either. I thought maybe he went back to you." I shook my head. Maybe he went back to himself. She nodded and slowly walked out of the house without saying another word. That night, I sat in the dark, staring at the small fan turning slowly on the ceiling. My heart was heavy, not because of Amara, but because I realized that in fighting for my life, I had lost my only son. I didn't regret it. I just felt it. That deep ache only a mother understands. The ache of watching your child choose silence over healing. But I also knew I couldn't chase him. He had to find his own way back. 2 weeks later, I was in church when someone tapped me from behind. I turned. It was Chinedu. He looked tired, thin, but there was peace in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. He said, "Mum, can we talk?" We stepped outside, sat on the short wall near the children's church. He said, "I've been staying at a retreat centre. It's a place where they help men who are recovering from spiritual and emotional damage." I joined their program after the court case. I shut off everything. Phone, internet. I needed to find myself again. I listened quietly. He said, "Every night, I remembered your voice. Not when you were shouting, but the night you stayed silent in the kitchen when Amara insulted you. That silence haunted me more than any shouting would have. It made me feel like I was already dead to you. But I also knew I had to face it. I had to face the version of me that let a woman weaponize my silence." I blinked back tears. He reached into his pocket and brought out an old chain. It was the same one his father gave him when he turned 10, a small silver chain with his name engraved on it. He said, "I kept this all these years, but I forgot what it meant, that I was raised by a good man and a better woman. I want to come home, not to your house, but to your heart." I broke. I cried like a baby, right there outside the church building. I pulled him close and held him. I whispered, "You were always in my heart. I was just waiting for you to knock." That evening, he came home. We ate together. We talked. We laughed. He helped me carry water from the drum outside and even scrubbed the kitchen floor. As we cleaned, he said, "I don't want to be that kind of husband again, or that kind of son. I've enrolled in a training program. I want to teach boys how to grow into good men. Real men." I smiled. That week, something else happened. A young woman from our neighborhood came to see me. Her name was Ijeoma. She was a law student. She had followed my court case and used it as a project in school. She said, "Mama, your case is now used in our class as an example of elder abuse and legal restoration." She handed me a printed file. My name was on it. I looked at her and said, "So my pain became a textbook?" She laughed and said, "Yes, Ma, and an inspiration." I hung the paper on my wall. Ijeoma later joined my Saturday gatherings. She even offered to help turn our talks into a podcast so more women could hear our stories. We started recording with just a phone. Nothing fancy. But within a month, thousands of women across Nigeria were listening. One episode was titled, "She Tried to Put Me in a Home, but I Took Her to Court Instead." Another was, "When Your Child Becomes Your Oppressor." The messages poured in. "Mama, thank you. Mama, I'm not crazy. My daughter-in-law is just like yours. Mama, I want to fight back now too." My small voice had become an ocean, and yet I still kept my evenings simple. I still cooked with my firewood stove. I still soaked beans overnight. I still watched the stars when Nipa took light. Then one day, as I was coming back from the senior home where I taught, I saw Amara again. But this time, she wasn't alone. She was pushing a wheelchair. Inside it was a woman, thin, pale and weak. The woman was her mother. Amara saw me, looked surprised, then lowered her head. I walked past, but my heart was heavy. Later that evening I got a call. It was Amara. She said, "Mama, I know I shouldn't call, but my mother has cancer. She's dying. I have no money, no one to talk to. I've been going from hospital to hospital, and now I finally understand what it feels like to be powerless. I don't expect anything. I just wanted to say thank you for fighting back, because maybe if my own mother had fought back, I wouldn't have turned out this way." I said nothing. She continued, "If I ever have a child, I pray she never meets someone like me." I ended the call. I didn't call back. I didn't cry. I just stood there and prayed for her mother. Not for Amara, but for the woman who raised her. The woman who now sat helpless, being pushed by the same daughter who once tried to lock away another woman. Life has a way of balancing itself, and that was enough for me. So now, As I sit here, writing this in my old diary, I leave behind not just a story, but a warning. If you're a mother, speak. If you're a wife, don't destroy to build. If you're a son, protect the woman who raised you. And if you're a daughter-in-law, remember, one day you too will be a mother. As for me, I found peace. Not the kind that comes from keeping quiet, but the kind that comes from fighting for your own voice and winning.